Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of QTube. And today we are joined all the way from sunny Australia in the land of, I believe, Adelaide. We have young artist Product. Welcome to the Q Review QTube.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here, finally.
Yeah, so we've been chatting for a bit. You've been on the scene, we'll say, for a little bit, and long enough to reach the top of our Q32 charts with.
Stop it.
With
that was
Tired
insane.
of Boys. That was, but I think that was, you know what, for a song, if you're going to have a song that's going to kind of introduce you, and people are going to really remember you by, I think that was a great one. I think that.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me because that song came out of absolutely nowhere. It was a complete unplanned miracle, and I'm so grateful for it.
So, for anybody who's going to be watching this, let's start with the basics. You are Product, but first of all, where'd that name come from? How did you get to the name Product? And I'm sure it wasn't coming out of the womb. Why that name, and what kind of does it represent, and how did you come up with it?
So my real name's Joel, and I guess I had been under many different names in the past, like just experimenting with different sounds, and I hadn't really felt like I found my sound. I'm from Perth in Western Australia, which also happens to be where Troye Sivan's from. I only say that because I feel like people don't really know where Perth is. Except for, how relative it is to Troye Sivan. So, I always wanted to leave Perth. And it's not because it's not a beautiful city and all my family and friends are there. I just knew it wasn't right for me. Anyway, I ended up falling in love and I met someone. I flew to Adelaide. We had like a long distance relationship for a little while. And, I remember getting off the plane here and I saw City of Music, and I was like, this is a sign. Like, I have to be here. This is the next chapter for me. And I swear that night I just had the word, I'm quite a visual person. I had the word product come to mind. And I just had a lot of different parts of myself that I wanted to explore in sort of this more abrasive sound that I was working towards. And so Product for me was a character I wanted to create that was a little more jealous, angry. I just wanted to explore parts of myself that I normally kind of suppress. So Product just felt really cold and commercialist, and I wanted to kind of explore it through that sort of lens. And then when I actually started making the music, it completely changed anyway, what I was writing about. So I don't know that it means the same thing to me now than it did when I came up with it, but I've sort of just stuck with it.
Well, I think it's everybody has different names that they kind of go by, and I think that especially in today's music, with solo artists and the do-it-yourself artist and the indie kind of artist, there's so many names that are coming out that it's hard to kind of keep track of things, that you do have to have something that people will remember.
Sure.
Especially if you're going to get into music and you're experimenting with different styles and things.
100%.
So it kind of works. And I'm surprised there hasn't been a product before, because when you think about it, and you think about it in the worst parts of music, like that kind
Sure.
of, I'm just a product of the industry, I'm just a product of the label kind of thing.
That's right.
It does, and it kind of, now you being a do-it-yourself artist and being independent, it kind of takes that and flips it right on its head. I don't know if I'm making too much of this, maybe.
Thank you. No, I have thought about similar themes, and that's exactly what it represents to me now, I think. It's also kind of a bit of a duality. It's more of a like dichotomy, I would say, in my life, the music and sort of my day-to-day, because I do work another day job in healthcare. And product allows me to kind of step into that world when I put like my day behind me, or like on the weekend is usually when I record or write. So, and I kind of have to have that separation to stay sane right now. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like a whole other world that I get to step into, and it's escapism. And I think that's the same for a lot of artists.
And I think, I think it's exactly what you're saying. And now knowing that, you know, you're also in the health services world. So thank you, first of all. I mean, you know, everybody who's out there who's working in some way, shape, or form, I think, in health services is seeing the world from a very, very different angle. And
absolutely,
you're in that world. And I think you don't have to be a nurse or a doctor. You can just be even, you know, working within the system, and it could be through insurance or anything. You're seeing things very differently, and then you go and write. So catharsis is an interesting thing. And I think people think that, you know, what you're experiencing isn't an overload, but it is. And it doesn't matter how deep you are into health services. I think that right now you're seeing and you're around so much that the toll that it can take on you is a lot. So it's great that you have music to be able to kind of just, you know, let some of that loose.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And it has been like such an awful time. I'm actually lucky. I work from home at the moment in my position. So I have helped out at a couple of centres in the last couple of weeks, and I have to say it's been it's quite difficult because, you know, there's high levels of stress amongst the team. There's a bit of anxiety about, you know, just your own safety around other patients and their safety as well, making sure that everyone is social distancing even inside, you know, the practice. And you know, no one wants to be sick, so people are coming in looking for support from you, and you can't sit there and be miserable. So it is hard, and I think a lot is expected of all of our healthcare workers at the moment, but I think everyone's really risen to the challenge here in Australia. We have seen a spike in cases in a few states recently, which is a bit terrifying, but I think generally Australia's done pretty well. So we are quite lucky here.
You're kind of a bit of ahead of the curve too, because you had, you know, such an outbreak much earlier than like us in North America.
Sure.
So you've been in it longer, and you're still in it. So it's kind of like, and I think people sometimes we forget about that. It's kind of like when it first started for us, people are like, oh my God, it's been X amount of months. And you're in Australia kind of going like, slow down. It's been longer for you.
Right.
But so yes, so it's great that you have music to be able to kind of, you know, channel some of that into it. And we've been hearing it. We've been hearing it from you. We've been hearing it from you and others. We've been hearing it for others through you in a real short amount of time. And as a young artist, you have really, I think, jumped in both feet first, flying into it, and said, I want, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but it seems like you've kind of put yourself in there and said, I want to get as much out of this as possible. I want to make as many connections. I want to work with so many different people. And you have been. And, you know, it must feel, and I don't know how it is for you, and I've talked to other artists who have been kind of like, I don't know, why would anybody want to work with me? They don't know who I am. And it seems like you weren't going to let that stop you.
Absolutely not. I think I've been, so I started kind of writing my own music and production work about 10 years ago. So since then, I have tried many a time to work with so many different artists, and quite often they've been so gracious and kind and kind of let me into their world. And even if it hasn't gone anywhere professionally, I've been really lucky to have some great mentors that I've really admired over the years. So now for me, I've kind of just arrived at a point where I feel at home in my own skin and in this space. So I just want to explore that to its fullest extent. And if I hear a sound from another artist that I really want to latch onto, and kind of, because I feel like I bounce off of other people's energy quite well when I make music. So for me to be so heavily inspired by someone's music and not want to reach out to them and work on something, I mean, it's just like, if you don't ask, you never know.
Fair enough. And that's really true. So recently, and I don't know if you knew people ahead of time, but you've made some really strong connections. Another young artist, of course, Tiptoe, who you have a single out with right now.
Yes.
You seem to connect with A. Solomon online. For anybody who's watching, these are all artists, very, very well, and a number of different artists that are out there. So I guess let's start at the beginning. You've been writing for about 10 years, you said, probably about 10 years in the past.
Yeah, that's right.
Your writing process right now, and I mean, I would describe you probably as an electro pop artist. I think that
sure.
You definitely are a pop artist, and I think that there's beats along your music that I've heard so far, and I think about "Tired of the Boys," and very much a pop with not heavy electro, but enough electro to kind of tip it into that range.
Right.
How would you classify yourself, and I guess where your strongest interest is?
I classify myself as pop, but I think pop is quite diverse these days. I think it's actually always been diverse, but I do find people have a misconception about pop music when I sometimes people go, "Oh, you make music? What kind of music do you make?" And I say, "Oh, I'm a pop artist." The response can sometimes be very standoffish, because I think people just think of dumb blonde pop stars like singing about nothing in particular, and that's really just not what it is. It's just kind of popular music. So I think it's just a good space to be able to jump into different sounds and different genres, and I am a fan of all different types of music, and I think if you kind of took a dive into my own personal library, you might have a heart attack because it's just very eclectic. And one minute I might be listening to, Edith Piaf, and the next I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen, and the next it's like, Britney Spears, and it could be anyone. So I kind of don't like to, I don't mind labels, but I don't like putting a label on my music, because then I feel like I start to try and cater to that sound rather than just being free to create in the moment,
Yeah, I think that, and music, if art in general, is an exploration, right?
Sure.
It's an exploration, and it's never meant to be tied to one, aesthetic or one, genre. It's meant to be, evolving. And I think that, as an artist, and I think that if you look at artists, all artists, they're always evolving. You start out, and just to use Britney Spears as an example, right? I mean, from Baby One More Time to something like Slumber Party, more recent,
absolutely,
or Work Bitch, right? Her progression has
iconic.
Very, very much so. And I mean, some of that music, and to use another one, Bruce, I love that you mentioned Bruce Springsteen, because I'm harsh over here with Bruce Springsteen. But even, he's still that artist. He's still a rock guy, but he bobs and weaves in from folky kind of sounds to straight up rock to that singer-songwriter. And if you think about Nebraska, so it's nice to have, it's nice to not limit yourself. And
absolutely,
to be aware of, that you want to try different things. That being said, right now you are in a firm pop kind of creative mode. Tiptoe, UK artist. How did that collaboration come about?
So Tiptoe is, we linked up online, I think through Instagram first, and I had just come across his album on Spotify and had a listen, and I was really impressed with his vocal production even. His vocals alone, like just his raw vocal, is just incredible. He lays like one take and then he's done. Whereas I have like 872 before I'm satisfied. So he just really blew my mind, how talented he was. And then as when we started talking, we found that we had a lot in common. And even just like growing up and our family situations. And so we connected on quite a personal level. And we actually tried to demo a couple of different songs, and they just didn't quite feel like it. And I actually suffer from anxiety as well. So I was kind of finding myself in a place where I was struggling more than I have for a couple of years. And I don't know, we had similar things going on in the background. So It's My Life, when we started writing it, was literally based on, like even just our text conversations back and forth and FaceTime calls, just trying to reassure each other and like, you're going to get through this, and or I've been there and, it sucks, but just hang in there, it's going to be okay. And we really helped each other through like a tough time, I think. So when you listen to that song, you are literally hearing us helping each other through a really dark time. And you can't not, I think, maintain a friendship after something like that. I think through that process, we gained a really strong friendship, and he's certainly working with me on everything that I'm doing now. So, I think we'll be working together for quite a while.
So two things from that. Number one, how awesome is it that through music and through just reaching out, you're able to make such a strong connection with another young artist, and just having those things kind of in common. I just think it's great that, you can find that in another artist like that. And I think that, those are the stories that don't get told a lot. There's a lot of the stories where it's kind of like, oh yeah, we hunkered down and, we wrote this out and we had to kind of go back and forth on different like the technical, logistic
100%.
kind of thing that people hear about. But this is much more of a connection where it's like through music and through working together, you're able to be a support system for one another.
Totally.
Two complete strangers. But
absolutely.
And I think that is fantastic, and I love that. The second thing is, again, how much of a fantastic story is it, and to understand that from a listener or an audience standpoint, to know that song suddenly, for me, takes a completely different meaning. I will have to go listen to it now and listen to it.
It's very literal. Yeah. It's the opening lines. I mean, I didn't know what to start it with. I had a melody in mind, but I didn't know what I wanted to sing about. And those opening lines, I mean, that song, I actually, after Tide got playlisted, I think, because it's just something that I've been working towards for so many years, and this really is my first love is music. And just seeing people listening to it and the responses and all the messages I was getting about, I'm dancing, with my grandmother in the kitchen listening to this, and it was so wonderful, but like overwhelmingly so, that I actually had quite a severe panic attack in the shower one morning, and I called the day off. I called sick into work, and I just stayed home, and I had like a TLC day. And then when we came back to writing the song, I was like, I was just like, I have to open myself up to this, you know, like I have to be willing to receive what is coming my way because I have worked so hard for this. And really, I've always done music because of that connection that you have with the listeners, because music has saved me and pulled me out of so many dark times or challenging times in life. So I feel almost an obligation to be out there doing that for other people. And I got to see that with Tired. So I was so grateful for that. But then mentally, I think I just, I wasn't prepared for it to be received that way, because I've kind of just been making music for me for so long. So it's my life. I mean, those opening lines, all the beautiful things that they give, making space to receive it. That was about that time because I was starting to receive so much positive energy from everyone else, and yet I kind of didn't understand what was happening. So yeah, and that's really what we were working through in that song. That's what you're listening to.
It does. It takes on a very different meaning now, knowing that part of it. And what you just said as well about having, you know, opening yourself up to receiving it. I think that, you know, you go in and you spend a lot of time on something, it becomes so close to you, you don't expect anyone to feel about it maybe the way that you want to feel about it. You want them to feel
Right.
about it. And then when it does happen, in one sense, it must be a very, you know, overwhelming satisfaction, and you just fills you up. You feel so good. But then when, and I mean, I watched Untitled, because I jumped on it right away. Like, so I was like,
I know you did. Thank you so much.
And I moved on it so quickly. And sometimes when I move on things quickly, people come along, and sometimes they don't. And I'm kind of like, that's fine. I want to move on it because I get something from this.
Sure.
But then I started watching, and I was just like, yeah, that I'm glad people are really responding to this because it is good and it is very fresh and great sound. And I was like, oh, I'm like, this came out of the blue. But that does have to be a little jarring when you're kind of like, oh, what does this mean? Because
absolutely,
you know, it's one thing to just kind of, oh, people like it, and then all of a sudden people are really talking about it and sending you things. It's like, oh my god, but what does this mean now? You know, what's the other side?
Exactly, and that we're in the middle of a pandemic,
which kind of, I guess, so heightens things, right? That it does heighten things.
It does.
What was, and I know that there was a lot, because I know that you've mentioned a few things before just online, but what was the, I guess, the biggest surprise for you, or the biggest kind of shock with the song for you? If there was a shock, I'm not sure, but like, you know, what was the big, the clincher, I guess?
With Tired of the Boys?
Yeah.
Okay, so with Tired, I think just the way that it was just truly so openly embraced. I have not seen, and I don't say this in, you know, a narcissistic kind of bragging kind of way, but I have not seen a single negative comment on this song. And in the past, like, I for sure have, and like I would have, you know, criticism for, you know, past work of mine, but this song I was so proud of, and it really felt like the first time that I had found my sound and was kind of standing on my own. And I felt like people understood that. I felt seen and I felt understood. I felt like people understood who Product was, even though I was kind of still exploring that as well. But I really felt like we've all been on the same page. And I feel really lucky to have had that. I'm just so grateful for it.
So you're collaborating quite a bit. And just today, this being Friday, July 31st, today or was it yesterday? I can't remember, because when you release, it ends up coming out maybe a bit earlier for us, but it's meant to be for you. You have done a remix for Ripley's Fake News.
Yes.
And again, it's so, and I said at the beginning, you know, there's you and other people. there's you and through other people for them, and this is that kind of situation where you now have taken and remixed it. Did Ripley approach you, or did you kind of go to Ripley and say, hey, I want to do this, or did you just do it and say, what do you think?
I think we'd kind of been watching each other for a short while, and then I think I actually reached out and wanted to do a remix, but we were actually going to do a different song initially, and then I was actually delayed for about a month, I think, and then I came back to it and I said, look, Ripley had actually just put out Fake News, so we kind of decided to give that a go. And I just, like, from the moment I heard the song, I knew exactly what I was going to do with the remix, and that's really special when you find that in a song. So it was really effortless for me. I knew exactly where I wanted to take it. I knew I wanted like a very controversial dance drop like halfway through. And I really just loved how free and unapologetic the lyrics of the song were. I'm not one to be particularly political in my music or on social media, but I just really felt like it was appropriate in this kind of time that we're in. So and it was just a really fun moment. I kind of wanted people to dance through that and just have it be like just a vomit of all of those negative feelings that we've all been having.
And I think, I mean, if you're going to connect with somebody, I mean, Ripley being, a new artist and also being a drag artist, it's really interesting because, I mean, in one way it's cliche because that people think drag has like a little bit more room because of the personas to be able to kind of say certain things. But Ripley has really, and I've been watching Ripley and I'm like, I think Ripley has a lot to offer and a lot to give, and they are doing it in a quick amount of time and very sharp. So if you're going to have a political song and be attached to it in some way, it's not a bad one to be attached to. And I think that you're right, that dancing through it, through all of that messaging, I think is important, because the weight of that messaging, and it's honest, it not,
is brutally honest. Yeah.
I mean, the song is called Fake News, so we know where we're headed with just from the title.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And the weight of that and the messaging that's in it, that with the world and everything that's going on out there, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we're all feeling that weight. Having yourself be attached to something like that you can find the levity on the other side of it and lift people up through it, it's a really nice place to find yourself, I think, is to be attached.
Yeah, I feel the same. Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah.
It's and again, Ripley is, and I don't see Ripley stopping anytime soon. With
no way
at all.
No way. And that's really been, Ripley's signature is the political aspect of the songs. I think Fake News is a strong one for me.
There's a lot in that song.
There's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot to unpack. And when you listen to it, you can think it's so I don't know if you've heard Ferdinand and Big Daddy Carson's Cancelled.
I haven't, no.
You want to listen to that. Because it's talking about how, because of COVID and everything like that, it really is a pride song, but just how everything is canceled, but we're not canceling things. We're still going to kind of push through it. So it's kind of like the more fun version of a political kind of message, just of what we're kind of going through. And then Ripley's, the way that it starts, you think that it could go in that same kind of manner, and then you start to listen, you're like, oh geez, no. Someone's got a lot to say.
lots of feelings, yeah. And I actually felt at the sort of C word drop that inevitably comes in the song. I've personally always found that to be quite a particularly abrasive word, and it felt very uncomfortable for me, like listening to it. But I felt that because of that, it was really important for me to actually just take it home and just go there. So I kind of put it on loop just for fun, actually, while I was making the song, because I think I kind of hit a wall halfway through producing it. And yeah, I just tried it for fun to kind of break the ice. And I pulled it out. I actually did a version without it, but we ended up putting it back in. So it is what it is.
And I think that actually, that's a really interesting, from a production standpoint, when you have someone else's song and their words and you're working with that, you are going to come into contact with some messaging and some content that maybe you're not used to. I think it's a really interesting, and I don't think that that's been explored very much when you talk to producers and you talk to remixers and DJs. I myself have had that conversation about rap music and some of the language in rap music, how, you do need to take that home and understand where it's kind of coming from. And that, it's, even though we're taught that certain language is, bad, it's not coming from a language standpoint. It's coming from a history standpoint, a hurt and a painful, a lot of the time,
Yes.
standpoint. And there's you have to understand that. And even though it's the discomfort for you is there, it's kind of like you have to work through that, because your discomfort, how do I say it? Your discomfort can't mask what the person's discomfort was that wrote it.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So kudos to you, because that's, when you hit those things, you hit a wall, and let's just put this on loop. I just need to live with this for a moment and
yeah,
embrace it for a bit.
We actually never discussed it. I didn't even know that Ripley knows that about when I was making the song. We haven't really discussed it. And actually, I took out the "Hope he dies" part, because that was just a personal thing. I'm not the kind of person that can ever wish death upon anyone, no matter how terrible I think they are. But then that was kind of my compromise, is taking it home with the other line.
That's fair. And that's really interesting from a producing standpoint, because again, different layers for you as an artist. You're a writer, you're a vocalist, and you're an artist on creating your own music. You're collaborating, but you're also in the realm of production for other people. Do you find it easier, I guess, and the answer is probably yes, but I'll toss it to you. Do you find it easier just kind of remixing and producing for somebody else than bringing it back to yours, because then it's yours?
I think I do find it, like, process-wise, it is a lot easier. I think because it's faster, because there are certain ideas that are already there to work with. For my music, though, I feel like I enjoy being in that space more, because I have no limits. I don't have a certain style that I have to kind of work towards. And actually, saying that, everyone I've worked with has been, I haven't had any guidelines or anything given to me. It's just been like, yeah, take it and have fun, which is amazing and so special and really hard to find sometimes. But you always want to kind of honor the original song and kind of honor where they're at in their creative space as well. So for me, that's easier for me to do, just because I've been doing production probably longer than vocals. But I enjoy the freedom of writing my own stuff.
That's awesome. So you're 24, right?
I am. Yep.
So you're still, you're relatively young. I know people get into music when they're younger, but you're relatively young in this scene, I guess. And you're young, and you're an LGBT young person, and you're a do-it-yourself LGBT young person. It's a lot of layers to getting into a career path that youth is embraced. The LGBT part, maybe not as much sometimes. It's kind of all over the place. So I from your standpoint and where you're sitting right now, what are the challenges that you're kind of facing? What are the hurdles that you're, coming up against that, or anticipating, I guess, maybe?
I actually have to be honest with you. I mean, I see some of the things that need to change, but I have not had a really negative kind of experience with too much of the industry because I've kind of kept to myself. Um, I'm I'm not the kind of person that wants to that needs to have, you know, a record label behind me because I've been doing it. I've been doing everything myself for so long, and I actually enjoy that now, and I'm really proud of it because I feel like so many more artists are able to become successful independently, and I think there's a lot of artists that have actually left record label, like major labels now, and are independent, and it's just a whole new world for them. And you see them talking about it. They're like, I would never go back. And you hear about contracts that people signed, you know, years ago for, you know, absolutely nothing, for 4 albums, you know, that they're expected to make in the future. And I just anticipate problems that I anticipate. I just want everybody to have an equal running in things, you know, and you hear now about, you know, the VMA nominations and, you know, the drama that we've had with the Grammys in the past. And it's just, it seems endless sometimes. And I think that because we're talking more about it now, it is changing. So I'm not really afraid. I'm not like anticipating any particular challenges because I think that when you just when you're free to be yourself and to make what you want to make and you stand by it, and you stand up for your peers as well and for what you believe in, I think that anything is possible, really. That might sound really cliche, but I don't like to kind of work from a place of, oh, what if this kind of happens, you know? I think you just have to kind of go for it.
I think too, what I'm noticing with myself too is that the old school person in me that, you know, I think about the challenges people have been through, but you really are part of a new wave of young artists that they're crossing genres, crossing boundaries. They're not allowing the same limitations of the past affect them. And I think it's because you're part of the first wave of young artists that can truly come into music being authentically themselves, not having to make a press release to say anything
Yeah.
and come out. You know, people will think that, you know, your neighbor Troy Sivan is one of the leaders in that, but he was a YouTuber first, before
Right.
getting into music, and people knew him that way, and he was going to meet and greets and different things like that. Whereas if you think of people who just kind of started in music, you are part of that front wave of young artists. And I think, you know, it's one of the reasons I like to talk to artists, is because I want others to know that that is happening, because I think
Mm,
the next group of artists that come through will be built off of anything you do kind of come up
for
against,
sure.
you know, and we'll learn through the successes that you have. So I think that's really exciting. I hope to be like 90 and kind of like, oh, I remember, and, you know, and being able to kind of recall
Same. Absolutely.
those things. So I think that probably sometimes I even get tripped up on that, where it's kind of like I'm thinking that maybe you're encountering, you know, some struggles or whatnot. Whereas, as you just kind of said, you've kind of been doing it yourself, that you've kind of kept things away. And I think a lot of artists do that. I think that probably the hurdles maybe that other artists are feeling, and maybe are coming back from the same things: funding, getting heard, getting played, that kind of,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And there's more of a focus on those real issues at the moment, which is great. Whereas I think in the past, it's been easy to kind of, you know, become complacent about things. I've run into things with people in the industry in the past that have been unsavory. Um, but right now, I just feel like we're in a really good space because I feel like it is a sort of transitional time, and a lot of artists are finding that quite difficult. I think record labels are probably finding that quite difficult. So, but it's a needed change, and I'm really proud to be coming into it at this point, you know.
It's a really strong time for, and I always say it's a really, exciting time and a strong time for LGBT artists, to be heard and be seen a lot more. But it's a really interesting time for the small boutique label who are really taking and cultivating and fostering niche relationships, or relationships with niche artists, um, because they see the value in them. Whereas before, a lot of labels, bigger labels, have kind of looked for the marketing, looked for the potential, the revenue potential, that kind of thing. Whereas I think the smaller, and I've talked to one in, I have a pretty good relationship with one in Adelaide, I believe. No, Melbourne, is where they are, and we've done some work together.
Right.
We've kind of gone back and forth and whatnot, about things, and they are really being very smart in terms of how they're approaching their artists and really wanting the best for them and really wanting to showcase the diversity.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's really important. I think on sort of the project that I'm working on at the moment, celebrity culture is something that I'm exploring a lot. I just wrote a song called Everybody's Famous, and it's sort of about the obsession with fame that people have, and the way that people start to treat people differently. Once they have a certain number of followers on Instagram, or it's endless. And that is just the world we live in now. And there's a line in it, when everybody's famous, nobody's famous, because you're taking away kind of I think the focus has shifted for a while away from the music and onto kind of the personal life of the artists. More so, like, that was the majority of the focus, I feel, and it's coming back to music now, I think, because the commentary's changed. People are talking about, different styles of music, and I think streaming has had a lot to do with that, because it's so easy to discover new music. Whereas back in the day, I used to watch like music videos on a Saturday morning on my TV, and it was handpicked for you and fed to you every week. And now it's just limitless. I mean, I have music queued in my phone for weeks that takes me so long to get through, but I love that there's really no boundary anymore.
I think that is a really good way of looking at it too, and I think that you're right. The whole concept of knowing more about the artist's personal life than actually what they sang or what their song was, not being able to remember what the song was, but being able to remember what their personal business was. That's a bit of a wake up that, we
100%,
need to shift gears back. The music needs to be, front and center. And at one point in time, it was. Everybody's had scandals. That's good. It's all well. But, and I think of, and I'll say Ariana Grande as one person where she was putting out so much music that the music was being lost over what had happened, the death of Mac Miller, and her and Pete Davidson, and then what was going on there. And there was a time right there where it was kind of like, I don't remember what the song was, what we're doing now, because there's been a lot of music, but all I'm hearing is the turmoil that she's kind of going through. And that's really sad for her.
Right.
But it's also such a commentary on, us as a society and that kind of nastiness. But
yeah, no, I totally agree.
So what's coming? What is coming for you? What's the goal? Let me ask this.
Okay.
What's the goal for the rest of this year and that kind of thing, and in general? And what's coming along with that?
There will be an EP. There will be an EP, and then I'm actually working on a 2-part album. So I don't want to say I don't want to say too much about it, but I will say Tiptoe is helping me with everything because we've just been going through such similar things together. I think we're in a similar space thematically with what we're writing. about. So we just bounce ideas back and forth every week. So in the meantime, I'm doing a couple different features, and I'm still doing production work and writing with people. So that will be coming, but there is an EP very soon. So I'm very keen to keep putting out new music. I think it's a good time now as well, because I think music is getting people through the day.
I think it is too. I think that there was a false sense of security recently with everyone, that they thought that this pandemic was kind of, oh, we're almost through it, we're going to be done.
Right.
And then we started seeing just how much we expected second waves in different places and upticks once people started kind of moving around and things. But with what has happened in the United States, which has just kind of been like a pressure cooker at this point between, George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and the amount of, trans Black women who are losing their lives, to the amount of extra cases that they've had, and they're in an election year, and there's so many. I think the rest of us, when we have small upticks in COVID and stuff like that, I think it gets amplified a bit because of that pressure cooker, because it's so much in front of us.
I agree.
There's so many artists that we see every day online, and and they're always kind of talking about it because they're living it. It's all around them. They can't kind of escape. But I think it amplifies it on our end.
I totally agree. I've actually, like, literally coming back to Everybody's Famous, I don't normally give so much of the lyrics away, but it's just so relevant. I feel the chorus is like 911, it's an emergency. All the stars are gone, it's too dark to see. If my children, they don't look a thing like me, at least I'm famous. And it's just like, I think all of the artists that well, I don't want to say all, but I feel like most that I've been working with and even just talking to online have been going through some really tough things behind the scenes, and you don't get to see any of that. And they're always so gracious, and they're still working hard, and they're still putting out content for everyone, because not just because it's an outlet for them, but because they can see the impact that it has on other people and how it uplifts people. And I really do think it's amplified. I think that everyone's going through that at the moment. So it's also, for me, been a good pause for the industry, I think, and to reflect on what's going on in this industry and in, just in the entertainment industry in general. So, and it's like, do you really want to see artists like this? Why are there so many artists that are so unhappy, and why does it have to be such a catharsis every time? And I think creative people naturally draw on that, but I think we're coming to a point where we're realizing that there's a lot that needs to change, and we're actually able to make that change now. So I think that's what I see happening. The hopefulness, yeah,
is there, that you can see that the potential for change is there. We still know that there's uphill battles and all that kind of thing, but you can see that there are cracks. There are, the potential is there for change, and good change.
Absolutely.
And it makes the battle and the hurdles and the struggle kind of going through it that much more livable, because you can see that it's not just like, well, it's going to be for nothing, but you can see that it can be for something, to be
That's
for
right.
everything, to be honest. So we're gonna get an EP, which is exciting, and a potential double album. Like, I'm excited by that. When you say a double album, I'm just kind of like, oh God, bring it home.
Right.
It's exciting. I get excited by.
I love that.
It's just, I come from the land of idealism in music and that, and I love it when artists get a chance to create and do crazy wild things, or go back to things that nobody has done for a while, and play with some different kinds of things. I think that's really exciting, because it
for sure
shocks the industry a little bit. And I don't think that I don't think music should ever become complacent. It always should be electric. And that's why I get so, people say, how do you, listen to everything? And it's like, because I get excited by it, but also because I know that there's all these nuggets of gold out there that just need to be, dusted off a bit and put in front of people so that they can shine.
Absolutely.
That's exciting to me. But so a double album just sounds very wild, and I love it. So who are you excited by recently? Who's out there making music that is exciting you that maybe people haven't heard of, or maybe, they have heard of, but maybe they're just not tuned on to?
Ooh, certainly Just Shy, funnily enough, in Melbourne. I think that I actually don't think that he spends too much online. So, much time, on, say, Twitter or whatever else, but his music seems to be really well received. And we actually worked on something a while ago that we're going to resurrect. I think he's just boundless in what he can do. I think his ideas are just larger than life. So I'd like to see more from him. I would. Who else have I been listening to? It's so put me on the spot now.
That's what I do.
But truly, a lot of the artists that I discover through Q Review is a huge source of like where I get all my new music from. So I just tuned into Bryce's performance this morning on Zoom. So I've been listening to a lot of Michael Medrano, a lot of Marcus Connolly, Bronze Avery I love, obviously A. Solomon I'm obsessed with at the moment. So there's just so many. I mean, I really just go to my phone and I put shuffle on Spotify, and whatever comes, and I'm like, this is what I need at this time.
That new Just Shy, Consumed by a Beat, that was so hard for me to sit on because I had heard it, and I was like, oh my God, and I was just waiting, and then I didn't want to say anything about it when it kind of first came out because I needed to kind of see, because I had to formulate in my head, and I was trying so hard to remember who his voice, and I couldn't remember, and I don't know if I still can't quite pick it out, but there is something in his voice on that song particularly where I was kind of like, oh, it's reminding me of something. And I couldn't wait any longer, so I had to kind of put something out, but it's still sitting with me, and I keep going back and listening to it. But it took me forever. Like, it was so hard for me.
I saw that in your post. I was wondering if you ever found out. So
no, I keep
let me know if you think of the name.
I will. Well, I'm definitely, whenever I figure it out, I'll be like blasting it out everywhere. But yeah, that was hard to sit on, knowing what it sounded like.
Yeah.
Like, I talked with Henry Dell, who put out his latest song, Careless, and I had heard that previously too, and I was just like, and I couldn't wait for that to be out in the world. I was just
Did you just send that? I think you just posted that reply to my Twitter, my tweet on that, and I listened to it before our call. It's out of this world. I love it. I'm gonna have to go dive into the discography.
I was like, but to sit on that and knowing, it's just, I get super, I almost get anxious for the artist sometimes when I hear things ahead of time, especially if I know that it's good. And I get anxious for two reasons. I get anxious because I think it's going to be so good for them, but I'm really anxious too that it comes out in a landslide of things and gets lost. And I'm kind of like, no, it can't get lost. No, it can't get lost. Just simply because I think that we're inundated, right? And there's either so much, and there's so much kind of white noise and noise kind of like that you're trying to filter through that you don't pick up on things, or you just become overwhelmed by it so that you just go to the favorites. So I'm kind of like, no.
Absolutely.
You can't get lost. I was kind of like that with yours. I was like that with Tired.
Yeah, well, and because everything is changing day to day, politically, and then with what's happening with the pandemic, it's really, there's just so much content online. It's hard to catch things sometimes. I mean, I just had an album that I found last night when I was going through my New Music Friday I kind of try and scrape through Twitter and see what I can find, who's dropping what. I found an album that dropped the same day as It's My Life that I completely missed, like a whole mixtape, a whole project from an artist that I love. So it's really hard to keep up sometimes.
It is. Believe me.
I don't know how you do it.
I try to keep track of it. My house is insane with music and Post-it notes and calendars and you name it.
I love that.
But how do you find what people are saying online? A difference can you figure out a difference? My God, I can't even speak anymore.
Well, that's because it's like midnight your side.
But between what's happening in Australia versus maybe what you're seeing online from other places, do you think that there's, I find in Australia, from what I'm gleaming, and this is from the other side of the world through a 15-inch screen, whatever, I'm finding it's a little bit more what I feel like music should be, in the sense of balance, of people being heard. I watch, with Jay, oh God, what's the article, the magazine, Jay. Oh,
An Australian one?
Yeah.
Triple J.
Triple J, thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Between what they're doing, because I see a lot of the artists that I find that I'm following or whatnot on Triple J, which I think is
absolutely
fantastic. I said this to previously about BBC, that they seem to be cultivating. There seems to be a cultivation in Australia that maybe we're not doing as much or as well as in North America. But I'm just kind of curious from your perception, being there and releasing and that kind of thing.
I really feel like, and I don't even know if this is true now that I come to say it, but I feel like North America is very saturated with a lot of great music. So not that, other places aren't, but I don't know, I feel like it just comes at you. Whereas, here in Australia, like you say, Triple J is really, their Hottest 100 is an event. When they do their Hottest 100, it is like a national holiday, and everyone around the country is tuning in to hear their favourite songs, rise to the top. And, I think about Flume, and I think about Mallrat, and so many amazing artists that I've watched from, like, when they had no following and very few songs out, and they've just done incredible things. So I think Triple J has fostered that. I think that lots of us, like Australians, are into lots of different music. I'm really heavily influenced by like UK house music at the moment. So I've been kind of diving into that, and I think everyone has something different to offer, and but that's the brilliance of having social media now, is we can just kind of discover anything, really.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, look at this. You're 12 and a half hours in the future in Australia, and I'm 12 and a half hours in the past, still trying to figure life out.
Yeah.
And it all comes full circle through the internet and the wonders of media.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, listen, I'm gonna be so excited and so, full of anticipation for what kind of comes next for you. I've enjoyed watching and getting to know you and getting to know your music, and, the things that you're doing, I think is really great and exciting. And it's nice to see the collaborations. Sometimes some collaborations are expected. You expect, these two will hook up because they're kind of in the same realm, but you're not limiting yourself by collaborating with, and I think it's great, because I love seeing it happen.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all of your support, and I'm really glad that you understand the music, and you've embraced it so wholeheartedly, and I'm really grateful. So thank you so much.
So it keeps me going. It keeps me going. Gets me energized. Gets me up in the morning. And I get to introduce.
That's what we want.
People, but I get to introduce people to kind of like, oh, product. Yeah, no, Oh, that's. Yeah. Oh,
That's
you're just hearing it
product.
now. You're just hearing it.
I'm over product. Like,
never. Listen, this has been fantastic. I'm so happy that we finally got a chance to kind of do something like this, and I'm glad to do it this way because I really think that more. You're a bit of a mystery. Not everybody knows who you are, and that kind of thing. I'm really excited to kind of let people in on and pull the curtain back a little bit on you and say, hey, check product. Check
me too.
Out.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It's been really nice getting to know you and having a chat.
Yeah, absolutely, and there'll be many more to come.
Absolutely, I can't wait.
All right, I'm going to return you to your life. 12 and a half hours in the future. And we're gonna see each other online, and we're gonna chat more.
Absolutely. Will you get some sleep? I hope.
I will indeed.
All right. Thanks, Kenny. Have a great night.
You too.